Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I am your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down with my friend, Charles Antis. Charles is the founder and CEO of Antis Roofing and Waterproofing out of this lovely state of California. And Charles is an expert at being community-minded and also is a great role model within the construction industry and especially in the roofing space and their communities. So Charles, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Looking forward to another great conversation.
Well, thanks for that really, really generous intro. I'm ready to talk now. You got me all ready.
Awesome. I love it. Well, you and I kind of hit it off as friends at the Best of Success event that we attended recently, and just had an instant connection with you. And I was drawn to your warm personality, your lighthearted humor, and ability to gather, people around you that just seem to be interested in what you have to share. What is it about roofing and this space that helps you be so giddy and positive?
Well, you just really hit on something right on the bat there. It is the space of roofing. We are a generous and storytelling group of people that we provide that basic need of shelter, and we understand that. But you and I hit it off because we both knew we had something in common, and it was about doing something good. Like Ronald McDonald House, and I got to show, I'm wearing the socks today. Gosh, this is a tight set to do that. But I got to tell you, we hit it off because we both knew things like that, like families need to be close to their sick kids. And we love that this industry supports it. But I'm wearing a new jacket. And I'm going to make your point. Last night, I got to go to the all-Laker Access Pack. I got to go back and sit with Kurt Rambis and Byron Scott and all these old legends. And as I was talking, and Michael Cooper was teasing us, all of a sudden my jacket opened up, and the Lakers shooting guard, Lonnie Walker, he looks at that and he goes, "What are you doing at Boys and Girls Club?" I said, "I just joined the board." And he said, "Man, I'm an alumni of Boys and Girls Club." And so what happened in that moment of all those acquaintances, all those new people that were legends to me, but they just met me, most of them, in that moment, Lonnie and I had that thing in common. Just like you and me, Mike, we had that thing in common. We knew that we believed that kids need to be held tight and they need to be looked at when they're young and say, "Look at you." And so I'll always have that connection. Next time I see him, he'll probably remember me. He won't remember what happened, but he'll remember how we felt. And that's why you and I feel good about each other. And that's why this industry has so much in common. We have so many people in the construction trade that love to donate their services, come together, and together see what we can do as a community to make our community stronger.
Yeah, your sense of community is second to nobody that I've ever met. And I can feel that just not from just hearing you talk and watching your expressions, but the spirit of what you're trying to convey is very evident. And I just very much appreciate that about you.
Thank you.
So tell me this, how does a roofing contractor get so involved in their community? I mean, I don't think this is as common as would be nice. I mean, what is it about this that speaks to you so boldly?
Well, there's just some common elements that we were trained by our fathers and parents. I say my father when I mean my parents, but my dad taught me to work hard. I grew up in Oregon where all the men that I knew worked hard, either in logging camps or in lumber mills, and it was dangerous work, but you worked hard. And my dad never, ever cheated. He never stole anything. He never lifted a cup out of a mall. He always paid his taxes. So my dad taught me two things: work hard and always do the right thing. So when I ended up in roofing, there became kind of a magic moment that was disguised as kind of a horrible moment for me. And it repeated itself. But the best story that happened that I can remember in my first year of roofing, after I discovered that I could solve anything that leaked from rain, after I told everybody, give me the leak that no one else can solve and I'll fix it for free, I got a call one day and I went out to a woman's house. But as I was getting closer to this area near LA airport where her home would be, I noticed the homes were getting smaller. I saw graffiti, they were more disheveled. And I started having this feeling in my gut as I turned on the street where the home's going to be. And finally, I look behind this one house, I see dead grass and this setback small home with the number on it. I go, gosh. But there's that dad thing again, do the right thing. You show up and you knock anyway. I knocked on the door and three things happened that probably really answered that question more than anything, because it led me to this whole conversation that leads me to talk about these things all the time. And that was a woman answered the door instead of smiling, but with a really exhausted, tired look in her eyes. I'm wondering what I'm going to say. And suddenly the second impression hits me, which is a smell of mildew, like I haven't smelt before, that nearly knocks me down. And so suddenly I have this fight or flight mentality. And now I'm wondering what I'm going to say because I'm leaving. But as I try to leave this home, before I utter a word, I feel a third impression. It's a tug at my finger. And that's when I look down, and in contrast to this mom's expression and my expression, I can't imagine what it was like. There was this little girl that looked like her mom, except she was smiling. She's about 6 years old, and she had a visitor in her home. And it was apparent it wasn't a common thing when she pulled me in through this crowded living room into this crooked, dark hallway. And finally, she turns into this little room. And I knew it was her room because she was so smiley, pointing at this My Little Pony poster on the wall. But at that would-be happy moment, I looked down and I saw a mattress with moldy bedding. And I was stuck. I was stuck because I gotta tell you, I didn't feel like I had any means. I just started my business. I had a mortgage payment to make. But this little girl was just sitting there smiling at me, and I realized in that moment that she slept in a room with moldy bedding on a moldy mattress, and something came in me when her mom walked back in the room with that same expression. And suddenly I looked at her and something came out of me that I never remember saying before, and I said, let me look at your roof. Maybe I can take care of your roof. And that was that moment that I went up hoping it was just like a hole through the roof. And instead, what I found was complete plywood exposed. It was rotten. And so I didn't have a choice because, again, Dad taught me to do the right thing no matter what. I didn't have a choice. So in that moment, I got on the phone that night and I got volunteers in that weekend. I got some material. We went up there, and I didn't apply the best roof I ever applied in my life, but I applied a drippy on the outside, dry on the in, like cold app roof that kept that family in that home. And it was a magic moment for me. I didn't still know it yet, but every time I would run into one of those volunteers, there was like 6 of them. And every time I would run into one of those siblings, which I did for maybe 20 years, it was like a moment. It wasn't like a hello moment. It was like a high five and a hug moment. And what's really notable is when you have a hugging moment when you're not a hugger. And that's what that was. It was like, wow, why does this happen? And today, that's what we feel when you come inside of Antis Roofing, this magic building that holds a studio, that has our workforce. I mean, you feel a sense of purpose. We all know why we're here. We all know that story, and we have our own stories of doing whatever it takes to keep families safe and dry. And I'm going to go one step further. We all have this. If you're listening to this and you're not in the trades, you all have that skill, that thing that you can do that in that right moment you might need to give it. And I call that your doctor on an airplane moment. And I've seen this happen. I was on an airplane going to a roofing convention in Florida. And I had a meeting the next morning, and about over Albuquerque, a guy starts having a medical emergency, and we were panicked. Nobody knew what to do. The pilot was panicking. And suddenly we watched that thing that I imagined always, the doctor on an airplane moment. 2 of them got up. They started telling what we need. They got oxygen. They got everybody started handing in their towels. All of a sudden we went from, are we going to make our flight, to, I hope this guy makes it. Thank God there's a doctor on an airplane. Now, I got to tell you, what's great is we can go beyond and we can give further, because when that flight landed in Albuquerque and when I met that British doctor that sounded so noble, I found out he wasn't a doctor. He was the animal medic at the Pacific Aquarium. Wow. And he was assisted by a nurse from a children's hospital, and I can't remember where she was at, but we all fell in line and we all came together to do something great for that small community that was on the airplane. And I think what I challenge people is to look for what is your doctor on an airplane moment. I mean, we have ours all the time with kids, families. I mean, we were able to tell the story about keeping families close for Ronald McDonald House, which I'll tell more later, and tell it and get 200 companies to adopt all of the roofs of all the Ronald McDonald houses in the country. And now the reason I wear this logo jacket with the Boys and Girls Club logo on it and with the Roofing Alliance logo on it, with the Antis Roofing logo on it, is I just joined the Boys and Girls Club and I'm on the Roofing Alliance board and I'm dreaming, oh my God, there's 1,000 Boys and Girls Club. And what if we could keep them safe and dry on the outside and build career-specific training on the inside and bring the trades to all these families whose kids need to be held and say, hey, look at you. And so when you have a dream like that and when you put it into the trades, we all can have a doctor on an airplane moment. So it gets me excited. I kind of went all over the place there, but as you can see, I'm passionate, and this passion brings in the best leaders. You've met some of my leadership team, like Aaron Antis, Susan DeGrassi. I mean, there's some amazing leaders here. The guy that runs the whole field for me, Narciso Alarcon, he was the best of the best MVP in 2017 in the roofing industry. And he's coming with me with his son, who also works for us as a first-gen worker, to Washington, D.C. for Roofing Day, when we're going to have 400 roofing pros show up so we can be heard in Capitol Hill, so we can lift our communities and our people even more. So it's a great time to give and give more. And I got to tell you, if you do it, if you give more and you tell why, when I tell that story of why I'm on the Boys and Girls Club board, when I tell that story of why I'm on the Roofing Alliance board, it builds trust and I'm heard. And you can't fake it, because if that wasn't true, it would probably come back on me. But your real stories today have never been more important to be heard in the world if you want to build trust and to be respected and to be heard inside and outside your company.
Well, and I've got to just say, obviously, the listeners can feel, even through the airwaves, your passion, and you are just squeezing every drop of juice out of what you're doing. And I've got to imagine this has to be absolutely infectious to your staff and your team, and even the guys up there swinging the hammer on the roof. I mean, do they convey this same enthusiasm or some level of passion that you're encapsulating here?
Wow, that's a great question, and I could answer that in a whole podcast. But originally, no, because I didn't tell them my story. I did it, but I didn't tell them why. And why are we adding all these habitat roofs? Why are we donating them? And when I finally told them my story and listened, it started to matter. But I got to tell you, there's two layers there. We have 100 people in our company. 30 of them are in the office, which is notable for a company that has 30 in the office. But it's just the way that who we cater to. But those in the field are almost exclusively immigrant and first-gen labor, and they're Latin people, and they're beautiful, beautiful families with beautiful stories. But honestly, it took me longer to be able to listen, to be able to hear what the struggle that I have of surviving in the world, of building trust in the world, might be different for an immigrant family. I think that when we were really able to listen and build bridges, and not only just build like leadership training, but build leadership training focused from people born in Latin American companies, focused on teaching EQ and leadership skills. When we were able to, and when we were able to show a deeper level of caring, when I'm able to go out in the field and say, hey, you guys, you first gen working with your dad in your dad's company, do you know how much your dad makes? It's pretty good. Do you know how much our salesmen make? Do you know they make can make 3 times what your dad makes? Why aren't you coming to sales? And now I see all these first gen people coming in the office. And then I see these first gen and immigrant people, some of them don't have their own homes, showing up on a habitat build. And I seeing Telemundo interviewing them and go, hey, why are you here donating your time when you don't even have your own home? And then I hear Narciso, our leader, say, because we're all together, man, we're all in community together. Then I start to think that we get it. But I got to tell you, if you're going to build real bridges to all the way to your people, you have to listen. You have to find out, not just tell them your story or what you care about. My story of my twins being born premature and why I needed to be close to my twins that day, and how one day Ronald McDonald House gave me a granola bar that calmed my heartburn so that I could lay Charlie skin on my chest so he could heal. And that's why I give back to Ronald McDonald House. Well, I need to hear their story. I need to hear their story, like my accountant's story of her sick aunt with cancer and why she gives to American Cancer Society. And once I build that bridge to her, I learned to trust her. And whether I liked her or not, I learned to love her. And I think when you build that kind of real power into a company and you really listen, you're able to build some amazing programs. We really listen to the stories in the field. I got to tell you a story that is so beautiful that it's so uncommon. There's honor and respect the way we were taught the word. And let me tell you, honor and respect the way it was given to me by a guy named Pedro Vasquez, who used to work for me that now is self-employed. Pedro tells me that when he was young, growing up in the plains of central Mexico at 7 years old, his dad would come in about 3:30 in the morning and say, "Hey, Pedro, hey," wake him up and he'd say, "Hey, Pedro, will you come to work with me on the farm for a couple hours before you go to school today?" And Pedro would clear out his eyes and say, "Yes, Dad." And the whole time, his dad looking at him, holding his stare, knowing Pedro knows he's only going to have limited schooling, but his dad honors him, holding his stare, asks him a question. When you learn those stories of honor and respect, you're able to take those and build them into your company. And I think that's the level of listening that Antis has been able to do, because we were so desperate to be heard, truly heard, not just by the community and not just by those people that grew up 100 miles from me, but those that grew up in the central plains of Mexico that don't always have the same access to the same things that we do. And I think that's been a huge component in building the real strong culture that we have today. We have a rain right now, and we have people on the roof, and they have to work a lot of hours. And we had our first all hands on deck safety meeting since the rains hit. I was really nervous walking in that I would see the guys a little overworked. Instead, I saw them sitting down proud with their blue uniforms on, proud that they knew that they were doing whatever it took to live up to that right there, keeping families safe and dry. So I think that purpose in a company, when you really try to listen, and by the way, you can't invest too much in your people. Whatever you're investing in your people, you better invest more if you want to be successful. That will protect you. They are your most incredible asset. And honestly, it always feels like you can't give that much. You can't. If I give this much to my people, they're always going to expect it. I do feel that way. I'm afraid. But man, when I push through those boundaries and do it anyway, it's like there's a flow that's a beautiful flow. And you asked earlier, do you love it? Oh, I love it. I have the best CEO job in Orange County, but it's not that. My COO, Susan DeGrassi, she claims that this is the best job she's ever had. And I hear that in this company. I don't want to put that out there that people have to say that. But when I hear that, I feel like I know why. It's because we really found a way to build a company that works, where we give, we take this thing, this investment, that we do it for a reason, and then we take that excess and we reinvest it in our team so that we can do more and even do better. And if there's excess still, we give it to the community. And that's exactly what companies used to do. It didn't used to be just about making money. And I would say to you, if you want to be successful today in the world, you better say why you do what you do. Antis, we all know we come to work to keep families safe and dry, and it shows up in every aspect of what we do. And I think that's a critical component today. And you better have your stories that prove why. And if you can, it's not just about money, man. It's about sleeping good at night. I weigh everything on how I sleep at night, which, oh, by the way, we talk about doing good. There's a way to talk about it. And some people say you can't talk about it. It's creepy, or you can't talk about it. People ask for more. No, you talk about it with this pure intention of, if I can share exactly the ins and outs, even what's not working, but mostly what's working in this thing, what I'm trying to do, then it'll create a chatter in Tennessee and Oklahoma and Chicago and Florida and people. And so I try to tell the story in a realist way as possible, that maybe you could emulate it and give me feedback on how it's working there. But I have another tool, and as I have a visual storyteller, and it's a guy that does all the Antis media, his Robert Prabilski, Bobby. And Bobby, I'm going to let Bobby come in. I asked permission for this, so those who are listening, before we do this, and I'm going to take the headphones off so I don't tear up the set. Bobby's going to come in, and you can ask him what he does, and it'll be really interesting.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you and I met at lunch one of the days there. Do you remember that? You took a picture of Charles and I?
Yeah, best of success. That was great.
There you go. Well, thank you for joining for a minute here. Love to hear a little bit about what you do and why. Why does Charles Antis have a Bobby on his staff that is obviously a key part of everything he does every day?
Absolutely. So the key word is definitely storytelling, which is so what my specific job is to do is to take the story of Antis and how we, like Charles said earlier, keep families safe and dry and share that in a way that can be retold, not just with text or with talking, but visually. So through composition, color, photos, videos, I share the stories that Antis creates every day, whether it be in the community or internally. And I let people have a lens into seeing what we do every day. And it's a very fulfilling position to be in.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Why do you think, Bobby, that it is important that Charles has his story told?
I think it comes back to building bridges, like Charles said earlier, because if you tell and share a compelling story, it not only says positive things about you and your company and what you do in the community, but it can be retold and inspire others to do the same.
What a great job you have.
It's a very fulfilling job, yes.
Yeah, and I love, again, I have had the pleasure and the opportunity to meet Charles a few times, and most recently just a few months ago, and I just could not shake the impression that he made on me for positivity and goodness. And I just thought, man, I've got to lean into this community harder because of people like Charles and how passionate he is. So I love that he is investing in his storytelling as much as he is in everything else in his business because he believes it's important.
Absolutely. The one thing I say about Charles all the time, whether it be directly to him or in private when he's not even in the room, is he walks the walk. Like everything that he says, he does. Everything is true to life. There's no smoke and mirrors. What you see is what you get, and it's amazing.
Yeah, he's 100% authentic. I can vouch for that for sure. Absolutely love it. So is there anything that you would give for advice for other, not just roofing company owners, but other company owners that maybe aren't telling their story and maybe what you feel like they could be missing out on or that they could benefit from if they took this similar approach to what Charles is doing?
This is kind of a technical piece of advice, but I feel like it's very useful because I feel like when people go to events or go to things that where you're taking pictures with your phone and sharing it out, like don't be shy to share kind of everything. Now you don't have to share every single moment of your life, but if you go to an event, even if you take a photo of like a group of people and oh, that's not the best photo, I'll throw that away. Don't throw it away because that's a special memory that you've created with somebody. And even if it's not the best, even if it's not the top, top of the line photo or something like that, like sometimes you can put your standards aside to create a positive memory that sometimes you'll be surprised even with the performance of a post or the performance of the sharing of a story because other people, hey, I'm in that, or like, hey, I remember being at that thing, and it'll get retold and retold, just like building bridges, like I said earlier.
Yeah, and I think it opens a door for others to do similarly and be more open and sharing. And again, just like Charles has been saying, you're working to build a community here. And so, brick by brick, with each of these experiences shared, you're giving an opportunity for others to do the same thing and build on common ground those bridges, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, and even if you share an intimate moment like that, where you could even say something like, oh, this isn't the best photo, but here it is. That's an intimate moment and a moment of vulnerability, which could increase the possibility of that story being shared because you're sharing that special moment.
Which what I love about this, for all of us that are in business, that are entrepreneurs or that are managers of businesses, if we really believe in the product and the services and those things that we're doing to bless our community and to serve our customers, anything we can do that will more positively give us an opportunity to share that goodness or to share that service should be a good thing. So really there's it's like Charles was alluding, it's not bragging, it's not trying to shine a light on you, it's more raising the level of awareness of the goodness and the things that are going on within a given community, and the opportunities that there are for others to do the same. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, and you can replace the word bragging with something that's a little less harsh, like documenting or just sharing, because that's all it is.
I love that. Yeah, I took note right away when you were there and Charles said, "Up, here's my photo guy. Let's get a nice picture." And it was really it was unique, and much like Jonathan, Jonathan Kroll, our producer of this podcast, he follows us around with the camera, and he comes to events and he does similar things. And I have learned to appreciate the great value of telling a good story and how it again can inspire others to lean into the community, lean into their trade, lean into being proud of the good work that we do to serve our communities. And this is really, really very much in line with everything that Charles seems to stand for.
Absolutely, and it is very, very nice to work for a CEO like Charles and a company like Antis in general that cultivates creativity, not just in my position, not just in COOs and presidents and all that, but in every single person, creativity is cultivated.
This is awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your background and what you're doing to help raise awareness and be an important and valuable part of the Antis Roofing team.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I will put you back on with Charles now. Okay.
Sounds awesome. Thanks, Bobby. Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for Charles for sharing a little bit of Bobby with us.
Thought I wasn't gonna get the mic back. I'm not gonna give the mic up to Bob anymore. I didn't know he was a camera hog. Just kidding.
Oh, he's got a great story too. So this really, you had so much value and goodness to share. I'm so appreciative, and I had a couple things keep ringing through my mind as you were talking, and you'll appreciate this. One of our common friends, a partner of our business, and someone that I've worked with for over a decade, the folks over at K Post Roofing and Waterproofing, Steve Little. He was on the podcast along with Keith Post again recently. They've been on a couple times, and I was visiting their offices down in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and uh, I was having a similar conversation, and his words were ringing through to me the same as yours were, and it was that we're not just building a company, we're building a community, and we're building people. And that goes for their staff, their personnel, their team, and then again, the community that they serve. And I just got to say, the work that you're doing out in California and the work that K Post Roofing and Waterproofing is doing down in the Dallas Fort Worth area, I mean, it is truly a beacon of light to our industry, not just the roofing trades, but I think, you guys are phenomenal ambassadors for the great and important work that we're all involved in. And I really appreciate you leading from the front as an example.
Thanks for telling me that, but you have that same vibe as Steve, and I first met Steve 7 years ago. I went to my first committee meeting for the NRCA, and it was about, giving. It was a social responsibility type committee, and I opened my mouth in there and said, "I don't think we're really what we're doing in here is that impressive." And this is it came out wrong. I came out a little bit of an ass, and I felt, "Oh, my that came wrong." And I felt like and somebody in the room said, "Well, Mr. Ants, if you think there's gonna be a lot of change around here, I think you're mistaken." And I said it again. I go, "I think that's the wrong. I think we need to really do something big." And that was before we came up with the idea of Ronald McDonald House. But this was the most amazing moment because Steve came up to me after the meeting. He saw that I was feeling bad. He saw in me that I thought I shouldn't have said what I said, and he pulled me aside and he said, "Charles, thank you for what you said. You must keep saying it. You are a disruptor and the industry needs you." So I have my Steve Little
Wow.
stories. I've got a lot of them. I love to speak with him. I was, at Best of Success where I saw you last. He was speaking up there twice because he's got a lot
Yes.
to say. And so I think that we need those people. We do need as an industry to come together, whether it's walking in DC together. It's amazing what that does for us walking shoulder to shoulder in a trade that's so proud. And it's amazing what we can do together when we look toward the community. There's something about the way the public sees us roofing pros up there with that ability to go up on a roof when no one else will go and keep a family safe and dry. There's something simple and powerful about the metaphor of us doing that as a trade. And you see great companies that are taking advantage of that and doing it. When you go to the trade show and you see the GAF show, you don't see them just promoting Good 360 and Habitat for Humanity. They actually have a booth of Habitat for Humanity inside their booth. What is that? They're living what they're saying. At Antis, we're pound for pound GAF. We live what we say, and you can feel it, you can see it, sense it the moment you walk through the doors. And I'm proud of this team. I'm glad you got to meet another person besides me.
Yeah, and one other thing I'll say too, it brings to mind hearing you talk, Charles, about your team members, their family, these folks. You're talking about their culture and where they come from and their children. You don't hear a lot of business owners talking about their employees and their employees' children and how they're getting involved and how can we get them involved, and you're actually telling them of the opportunities that they have to make a bigger impact financially on their family's income by getting a sales position or something that could reward them even more favorably. And back to Steve Little, at K-Post Roofing and Waterproofing, they've got the nationality flags of all of their teammates that are displayed there at their office, where everybody has an opportunity to feel honored and respected and noticed. And I know that your staff feels the very same way. And I just applaud your example, and you're shining this light for others in the industry and those that I speak with to, again, hear your voice and learn from the things that you're doing, because I think we have an opportunity here as people that help build America, that help build the world and keep it safe and dry, as you're saying, keep things running. I think we have an opportunity here. And I just appreciate you being an advocate for the trades, because it's a blessing.
Well, thank you. It's a great time to stand up shoulder to shoulder with folks like me, Steve Little, and you. It's a great time to stand up being an advocate for shelter. There's something about even just putting our hands like that. That's powerful. When I talk about the simple rules of flashing, how everything above overlaps everything below. When I talk about the flow of water, I mean, we teach our leak techs to think like water, because we all had to lay up our heads up on the roof and imagine we're a bead of water. And what we learned, this is beautiful. We've learned that where there is failure, water will find it always. It does not pause to preside. It simply flows without bias to find the weakness. And that's what we do on the roof. And that's what we do in community. And as a trade, nobody does it better.
Wow. Well, this has been a phenomenal discussion. I absolutely have to have you back on again. We need to record another episode, because I think there's just too much goodness to share. And I would love it if you could come back and join us again next week.
I'll say yes.
Awesome. Well, I guess, Charles, just for parting words on this episode, what's the takeaway that you hope people come away with after our conversation?
I don't know. I think that we just left it so up there, wow, look at you. You're in the roofing trade. You provide shelter. Doesn't that feel good? Don't you sleep well at night knowing that you keep families safe and dry? And I'd say join us. There's so much room for you lifting our trade, because our trade lifts our families and it lifts our communities. We're able to truly advocate for keeping families and people and veterans and mothers and fathers and children safe and dry.
Love it. Thanks again, Charles.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.